Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this image. This is an example of using a very wide angle lens close to the subject to give a good sense of environment. Now with the addition of a few gels and some water spray, you can create your very own immersive surreal landscape. Okay, so let's have a look at what I've got set up so far. On this table here I have this old log which will form the basis of the image that we're going to create in this video. Then a bit further forward on this tripod I have my camera, and on the front of the camera I have a 16 to 35mm lens. Really for this sort of thing the wider the angle the better. So I'll be using this at about 16mm. On the top of the camera I have this flash sync trigger, and the camera itself is tethered into Capture One software. Now the first thing to do would be just to take a test image under the house lights with no flash, just to see if there's any contamination to speak of. So I'll just take a frame, and we can see from this that there's very little contamination to be bothered about. Okay, that was with the following settings. I had a shutter speed of 250th of a second, which is the flash sync speed for that camera. ISO set to standard 100, and I've got the aperture set to 2.8. Now it's very unlikely that I'll be actually using it at 2.8, so I'm just going to move this up to a more reasonable f8 to start with, and we'll see how that goes. I'll just take another image. There we go. So at the new aperture there is no contamination to speak of. So with that little experiment out of the way, it's time to set up the first of the lights. Here we are. So this is the first of the lights that I'm going to set, and I'm just going to put this round the back here so it's going through the back of the log, and it should illuminate the inside in here somewhere. So vaguely in the right place, just at an arbitrary energy level. This is a Profoto B1X, so it's 500 joules. So just to get the right exposure, what I'll do is just take a test image. Okay, and we can see from this that the exposure is not bad actually. So at f8, I think what I might do next is go on and set the next light. So the next one that I want to do is just going to illuminate this part of the log in here. Here we are. So I've got a small head here which I'm just going to get in as close as I can to the camera, somewhere around there. The idea being that this is going to illuminate this area in here, like I said before, but at this sort of scale, when you have such a wide angle lens, you do have to be fairly careful where you place the illumination. Okay, so again this is just at an arbitrary energy level. So these two will now fire together, so I'll do another test. Okay, and you can see from that the exposure is possibly a little overcooked on this side, and also you can see that we're actually going out of focus in a few places. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do is just adjust the aperture to give me a bigger depth of field. So I'll go from f8 and I'll go all the way up to f22, which is a 3-stop increase. Okay, so what I'll do is adjust the one at the back so that it takes that into account. So I'll just add 3 stops of energy to that light, like that. Now this one was a bit overcooked to start with, so I'm just going to leave it where it is, and we'll just take another image and see what that looks like. So now that has brought the exposure down in this area and left the other one more or less the same as it was before. That's what we had before, that's what we've got now. So I think I'll leave the exposure for this as it was. I think that's pretty good. Okay, so far so good. So we're starting to build up the image nice and slowly. So again, I need to add yet another light. This time what I want to do is just illuminate the other side wall on the inside in here. So I'm going to put another light round the back here, about there. Here we are, so I've just got another small head. Just going to place that about here somewhere. Hopefully that won't be in the picture there. And we'll give that a test. There we are, and you can see in here that it's actually just starting to bring up this part of the inside of the log. But I don't think it's quite at the right energy level just yet. So I'm just going to take that up to maybe another stop and a half. I'll add 2 stops to it. There we go. We'll just try that again. There we are, that's brought that up quite nicely. So with those lights set, the composition is sort of missing out somewhere. We need something in here to give us a point of interest. So for that, what I'm going to use is this plastic ice cube. Now I've attached this to a piece of wire, steel wire, just with a hot melt glue gun. And what I'm going to do is just place a retort stand just in here somewhere and just attach this to the top of it. So it just hangs in position about here. There we are, and I'll just clamp this in position about here somewhere. There. So with that set, we'll take another image. Okay, so now most of the elements are coming together. I think what I'd like to do is just liven this up a bit. So in order to do that, I'm going to add our final light, which is just going to be up here somewhere, and it's just going to illuminate our point of interest, the ice cube. So for that, I have another Profoto B1X, and I'm getting all these lights in fairly close, so that I can control the zone quite accurately. So hopefully that will be in about the right place. We'll just turn that on. So in order to assess what this light is going to do, what I'm going to do is just turn off the other lights. So I'll just do that, which I can do from the remote here. Okay, so with just that light firing, you can see that we're actually getting a little bit of illumination, but it's nowhere near enough. So what I'm going to do is just increase the energy on this light by about 4 stops. There we are, that's brought it to life a little. So I think that's looking about right. Okay, so with that little test done, what I will do now is just turn on all the other lights and we'll do a full test with all 4 lights firing. Alright, so far so good. Now, because we've got quite close into the subject with a wide angle lens, we've got quite a lot of nice detail right across the image here. And the illumination levels look about right. So there's a few little bits of tidying up to do, one of which will be at the back there. What I want to do is I'll just put this piece of cloth in place just to cover up the back of the table, like that. There we are, that seems to have cleaned this up a little. You can see on the previous image, this was the back of the table, and now we have the cloth in place. We're still getting quite a bit of spread from that light, so what I might do is just add this reflector just to concentrate the light and stop the spill. So I'll just place that on the front of this light. There we go. And we'll just check that. There, so that has done a couple of things. One, it stopped the spill, which I was concerned about, and also it's actually increased the exposure slightly, so we might need to modify that. Okay, so this image is starting to come together quite nicely. Before I have a final look at the exposures, what I might do is just start adding the gels. The gels will change the exposure anyway, so it's probably a good idea to do it at this stage. I'm going to start with this one at the front here, and I'm just going to add this green gel to that light. There we are. That seems to have coloured this part in quite nicely. Now I just want to add a gel to the light which is illuminating this side wall here, which is the one that's right at the back over there. So I'm just going to add this magenta gel to that light. Like that. There we go. And we'll just give that a try. There we are, that's coloured that in quite nicely. So that's given me the sort of result that I was looking for. Now, in order to add a dynamic element to this picture, what I'm going to use is this water spray in this bottle. It's just water. And I'm just going to spray that at the same time as triggering the flashes. So I'm going to put this at the back here, just about there, and I'll just do a test just to see if I've got everything in the right place. So I'm just triggering the water and firing the camera at the same time. There we are. That's giving me the sort of result that I wanted. You can see all the water spray in the background now, which just adds that little element to the image. But being a random thing, it's probably a good idea just to take 2 or 3 separate exposures there, and we'll pick the best one when we go into post-production. There we go, we seem to have got some fairly good results there. So it just remains to do the final little bit. Now, in all of the pictures that we've got so far, this bar is in the frame, and you can clearly see it in all of the pictures. This bit here. So in order to get rid of that bit, what I'm going to do is leave everything else in place, but just remove this and take another image. Then the two can be combined in post-production to actually get rid of that bar. So I'll just carefully remove this and place it to one side. So without that in the image, we'll take another picture. So this will now form our clean background, and we can paint out the rod. Okay, so with that image captured, it just remains to go into Photoshop and do the post-production. So here we are in Photoshop. And I think the first thing to do would be just to make a stack of the 2 images. So this is the foreground image, if you like, which includes the object in the middle. And this is the background image, which has it removed. So what I'm going to do is just let Photoshop make the stack for me by going to File, coming down to Scripts, and going down to Load Files into Stack. Then I'm going to ask it to add the open files, which are the 2 that I have loaded here. I'll click on OK, and what it will do is just make a completely different layer for each file. There we go. So that's the background, that's the foreground. Now you can notice that there is a slight movement between those 2. So what I would like to do is just make sure that these are aligned properly. I find the easiest way to do this is just to temporarily change the blending mode on this top layer from normal just down here to difference. Now what that will do is literally show you the difference between each pixel in each position. So this is the area around here that we're actually interested in. And you can see that it's quite dark, but it's not completely black. So what I'm going to do is just by picking that layer, make sure I've got that layer selected, I'm just going to use the move keys on the keyboard just to move the image around a little. So you can see that as I move it ever so slightly, 1 pixel at a time, it gets darker and lighter. And I think that is the best position for this particular part of the image. So with that complete, I'll just put that back to normal, like so. And then, still with this layer selected, I'll just add a layer mask to that, like that. And then I'll just make sure that I've got a black selected as the foreground colour, and go up to a paintbrush, and we'll pick a reasonable sized paintbrush. There we go. And with that selected, I'll just paint through where that bar is. Now obviously when I come to do it onto the point here, it will take the background out as well, which is not what I want. So what I'm going to do is just take that back to white again, and I'll just fill that bit in. And then we'll zoom in on that portion. And making sure that it's the image that's selected and not the mask, what I will do is just go to the patch tool, and I'll just see if we can patch that part of the image out. So just draw around there, just move that to another part, like that. Okay, now this little bit on the end here, we can just go back to the layer mask like so, go back to painting in black, and I'll pick a smaller brush, and we'll just carefully take that out like so. There. Okay, so with that little bit done, we can zoom back out again. And there we have our floating ice cube in the middle of this cavernous piece of wood. Okay, so the final part of this would be to add a crop. I usually use 16 by 9. Fits the videos very well. You can pick whichever you feel. I'm just going to possibly center that a bit, not too much. I don't want it completely in the middle. There, somewhere around there looks nice. Click on OK. And there we have it. So that is my take on an environmental close-up, a surreal image of the inside of a piece of tree trunk. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed seeing how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other images as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.